Do I have a motion on the consent agenda for the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. And so will the clerk call the roll, please?
Director Mitchell
Aye.
and Director Orzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving into the action items, this is a discussion for item 1, Child-Related Activities League. And we have Melissa Maddox is going to discuss that with us.
Good evening, directors. My name is Melissa Maddox. I'm the HR manager here at Metro Fire. I'm bringing to you tonight a new administrative policy, number 02.014.01, Child-Related Activities Leave. Basically, this policy is to comply with Labor Code 230 and Senate Bill 579. As you recall, if you recall, a couple months ago, we brought the protected sick leave policy to you. That was also part of the same Senate bill that was put into effect as of January 1st, 2016. So basically, this policy says that an employee may take up to 40 hours of leave every year per year for child-related activities. And any of that leave is protected and can't be used for a basis of discipline or discrimination in any way. It's up to 8 hours a month, so you wouldn't be able to take 40 hours of leave all in one shot. It's 8 hours a month spread out over the 40. And it basically, if you read through the definitions of the policy under what qualifies as a child-related activities, these are all directly out of the Labor Code. We do realize that some of it is somewhat vague in the sense of what qualifies as a child-related activities, but I feel that we could work through it on a case-by-case basis and with legal counsel and figure out what would qualify. We did have 522 look at this policy and their legal counsel, and they have signed off on it.
Great.
So if you have any questions about the policy, I'd be happy to answer them.
Please.
This 40 hours, is it additional 40 hours to, say, sick leave, or is this 40 hours would be deducted from the sick leave bank, but yet being used as you suggest?
It's technically under the law, it's considered unpaid leave, but if you have vacation or PTO accruals, you can choose to use those to receive your same pay. But in the case of maybe someone who works at smaller agencies or smaller companies where they don't have a whole lot of vacation, but they still need to take the time off, they would be able to take it off unpaid. And it would still be protected just as if they were using regular vacation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I realize this is an act, we're complying here with a law, and so none of that is an issue. But I do have a question about the impact that this has on staff. How much additional staff time do you think the logging and documentation of this might require?
Honestly, I think it would be very minor.
Okay.
HR already tracks all the other different types of leave, FMLA, pregnancy disability leave, all those types of leaves which are utilized often, and we have a pretty good system set to track that. The only time this leave would really be utilized is in the case with our agency, at least, in the case that someone was denied vacation for some reason. If I said I need to take Friday off because my daughter has a play, and the supervisor says no, you can't, then I could request this protected leave. But we don't do that, I guess is my point. And the other situation I could see is when on the line, when in telestaff, when you enter vacation, sometimes there's too many people off in one day and it won't let you enter it. That would be another opportunity where someone could utilize this leave, and that would be overridden in telestaff.
And that leads to a follow-on. What would you just ballpark the additional cost might be? Are we going to have to backfill for this? Someone's called in, mandated. Do you see that being an issue?
I think it would be, I don't think it's going to increase anybody's use of vacation. Mm-hmm. People use vacation for these types of things all the time, so I don't see any additional cost, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Your reference to it being vague, that's true, but I assume
Yeah.
that that much of that is because it's new, and as it gets moved forward, how do you envision this being modified over time? This comes back, and we make additions to the policy.
I believe, yeah, absolutely. And we did discuss that with legal counsel and with the union, just to figure out what, someone said, well, what if it's a soccer game? And we went through the definitions, went through the actual labor code law, and it's kind of, well, yeah, if it's a soccer game, as long as you can document it, then yeah, that qualifies. I think at some point, there will be case law that will have to be introduced. Someone will have to challenge it if they're denied the leave, and that's where we'll start to see the changes in the wording of the law to clarify, and then we'll update our policies.
That's what I was looking at. I thought, well, okay, what if I want to take my son fishing?
Yeah, it has to be school-related activities.
Fish come in schools.
It could be a fishing derby through your school. Yeah, it could be, very much.
Could be a field trip.
Yes, it could be.
Go ahead.
Since we're an emergency response entity, if we're in that situation in the summertime and we have a large amount of equipment out of the district, and we're saying, everything's canceled, we're down to bare minimum here, and then this occurs, we're still responsible to honor that, even though we're emergency response agency and we're down to the bare bones because of what's out of the district. So do we have any leeway is what I'm asking, because of the type of entity we are?
I think you do, and I think any business would. You still have to be able to run your daily operations, and so as long as you have a valid reason to deny the leave, such as that, something very, very critical, I think you would be fine.
Thank you.
It's not an absolute.
Yeah, let me tie in just a little bit from an operational perspective. We mandatory callback to maintain our staffing levels. And I believe if we got to a position where we were not able to fulfill our response capability and exhausted our resources to be able to bring back, that would be the case. I think from a from the cost, especially if they went unpaid, it doesn't cost us anything. And also those other issues, they'd be burning their existing leave accounts. So I don't envision we'd have any uncovered positions, and I don't think that it would have an adverse economic impact.
Thank you, Chief. No further questions? Then will the clerk please call the roll?
Would you like to make a motion in a second?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And Director Mitchell?
Aye.
Director Orzali?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving then to item 2, public communications policy. And Melissa, are you going to be carrying this?
Yes.
Okay.
So the next 2 action items you have before you this evening are in relation to Board Strategy 5 of the district's strategic plan. It's calling for the board to work with staff to review and revise board policies and ensure they meet the standards. So both of action items 2 and 3 are current policies. Staff has gone through, made some edits. They are minor edits because these are board policies. So they are being asked to be incorporated into the board policies and procedures so they can be maintained there in one singular document. So to get into the first item, district employment of former board members, you'll notice that the purpose remains very much the same. There was a simple strike on just wording kind of issue that was seen. And then the policy section, which was redundant to the purpose, was strike through. This, provided you don't have any changes or recommendations, would simply be put into the board policies and procedures after the full board approves that. So this evening, we're asking for the policy committee to take a look and move that to the full board.
Okay.
I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? I have no questions about it, so do I have a motion?
Yeah, I have no problem with making the motion.
I second. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Mitchell
Aye.
and Director Orzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to item 3, notification of board on sensitive issues. And once again, Melissa, you're going to be carrying that?
Yes. So the notification of board members on sensitive issues is a policy that became effective in 2005. So there were some minor edits in going through this policy to incorporate it into the board policies and procedures. The purpose area was really just to get some correct wording there. And then moving on to the policy area where it itemized the sensitive issues, I'd like to go over each one of those. So the sensitive issues remained very much the same. It was brought up to the top just because that is the policy, board members, notification of board members on sensitive issues. So I thought that was important to have up top. When it came to media releases and media inquiries, that was seen as really, it could be one item. So that item was combined and was simply renamed to news releases / inquiries. So we're going to treat that very much the same. It's going to be at the discretion of the fire chief and/or board clerk as to when board members receive copies of news-related material or inquiries. And that is how business has been done historically. And then the striking of disciplinary actions, that was seen as it is a sensitive issue. So we're going to treat those just as we have previously. There was no reason to have that as a redundancy and a singled out item. And then when it comes to releasing this information to the board, we're still going to use board members' Metro Fire email addresses unless otherwise directed. So I'd be happy to take any questions you might have on this policy.
Melissa, I do have a question. In this notification of board members, is there some understood hierarchy of what qualifies as something sensitive in nature?
We don't have it itemized, but our experience has been when it's going to be an issue that you as a board member are going to be addressed by the public or the union, or it's going to be seen on the news. That's when it's important that you be informed on these sensitive issues. So that is how staff has treated this policy and will continue to do so.
And as you and I have talked in the past, I think that makes perfect sense. If this is going to appear in the media, it also seems to me that if we have a firefighter who's injured or staff that's injured, that the board should be made aware of it. So what I'm looking for is some understood criteria that says, oh, this happened, so the board gets notified. Chief, you got any thoughts?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is at the direction of the board, if it were a recommended edit to this draft policy, we could put in there a serious injury to a firefighter and or some bench line, but other circumstances as deemed necessary by the fire chief or the board clerk. But I think that to try to define any of those situations, they're so vast and
absolutely. I didn't want to get into the weeds with it. It's just conceptually.
And I think the intent of that was to keep it on the discretionary side, because I know, unfortunately, our men and women out there do a dangerous job, and on occasion they get transported for evaluation. So there's a threshold in that of when we notify and when we don't. Mm-hmm. If I'm hearing you correctly, would you like to see some benchmark of a standard variable, or would we like to keep it in as written.
I'd like to have you do a four-way statistical analysis of variance and produce
Well,
some charts and graphs.
I already have that on page 2.
That's good. I know you do. No, what I was looking for was something that said, if A, then B, so that I didn't want board members now or in the future to be blindsided. And particularly when someone was injured, we want to know.
And I'm not sure what our policy is on injuries, but I believe that a lot of our press releases that come out, when we do go out to structure fires, we would release information of whether or not there were any injuries, whether it be to the public or to employees. A lot of time that sensitive information, making sure any family members maybe be notified first before that does go public. That, I would say, would fall under our sensitive issues section. Sometimes there are staff limitations and timings that might delay that by just maybe a few hours. But we, of course, would notify the board of those types of items right away.
That's all I'm looking for is, any further questions?
No.
Okay. With that, would you care to make a motion?
Motion made.
I'll second that, and would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Mitchell
Aye.
and Director Orzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Seeing that that completes the agenda for this evening, we will adjourn this meeting of the Policy Committee. Thank you.